Okay. Families, thank you for joining us. This evening we are hosting a family information session for kindergarten in 2024, so next year. So this session applies to children that are eligible to access both our 3-year-old and our 4-year-old kindergartens. In the coming months, we will have another presentation that will be more aligned on kindergarten and what to expect at kindergarten during the day and what to bring to kindergarten. But for now, this session is looking at kindergarten readiness. So how do you know if your child is ready for kindergarten, and some information on just some kindergarten in general. So I'm going to start the first section of the presentation, and then I will hand it over to Julie, and then I'll stop recording, and there will be an opportunity for you to ask questions after that, should you have any. Okay, let's get started. All right. So I would like to acknowledge that Macedon Ranges Shire Council is located on the lands and waterways of the Dja Dja Wurrung, the Tanarong, the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung peoples are the traditional owners and custodians of this land and waterways. I recognise their living cultures and ongoing connection to country, and pay my respect to their elders, past, present, and emerging, and any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander peoples here today. Today, I acknowledge that I'm meeting on the lands of the Tanarong and Wurundjeri Woiwurrung peoples. Macedon Ranges Shire Council is a child-safe organisation, and council understands that child safety is everyone's responsibility and prides itself on being a child-safe organisation with zero tolerance for child abuse. This means creating environments where all children and young people are heard, valued, and protected from harm and abuse. All right, so as I said, my name is Kate. I'm one of 2 area leaders in the Macedon Ranges Shire Council. So we have 8 kindergartens across the Shire. So my role is to support 4 of those kindergartens and work with our teachers, educators, children, and families. Julie is our Kinder Inclusion and Transition Support Officer. And her role is, well, Julie will tell you a bit more about her role, but her role is to support the children and families, and also, again, our teachers and educators, and provide strategies and just general day-to-day on supporting children.
Yes.
So tonight's overview on our 3- and 4-year-old kindergarten programs for 2024. The process of registration and enrolling children, and the big question, so looking at what age do you want your child to start school. So kinder, I guess, is more than looking at when they might be ready to start 3- and 4-year-old kinder, but it's also looking at their age and eligibility for school and school readiness as well. We'll also provide some information on kinder ready skills. And what to do if you are unsure, or you think that your child may have additional or diverse needs. Also, how you can support children at home, and of course, any questions after that. Okay. So, did you know that 1 in 5 Australian children start school developmentally vulnerable? And that means that they may not have had access to high quality programs, or it could also mean that they may have started kindergarten when perhaps they weren't quite ready. For children who do not receive early childhood education and care, it's 2 in 5. So 2 in 5 children can be vulnerable. Participation in 2 years of quality early childhood education has been shown to lift children's outcomes across all learning domains. And from birth to age 5, a child's brain develops more than any other time in life. That's such a huge fact. I like that one. And kindergarten provides over 600 hours of play-based learning. So the reason why we wanted to put those facts on there is just to highlight to families that kindergarten is obviously somewhere where we want children to come and have fun and explore and learn. But behind that, there's so many learning opportunities for children who can access kindergarten, especially starting from 3 years of age. So what does that mean? So funded three-year-old kinder. So the first year of kinder, we offer a minimum of 7.5 hours per week for children, and we also offer a maximum of 15 hours a week. So some of our kindergartens are able to offer a 15-hour program for 3-year-olds, and some of our other kindergartens are able to offer a 7.5. I know it says 5, but that should be 7.5-hour program. So
I think it's the minimum. 5 hours is the minimum.
Oh, thank you, Julie.
Amount.
So 5 hours being the minimum amount. So really important, children must turn the age of 3 before the 30th of April in the year that they start kindergarten. So if you have a child that turns 3 before the 30th of April, they are eligible to start kindergarten. Funded 4-year-old kinder. So we call it a second year of kindergarten, if you like. It's 15 hours a week of kinder, and children must turn 4 years before the 30th of April in the year that they start kinder. We also have what's called an early start program as well for 15 hours a week for early start kindergarten. So children who are 3 years of age, but there is a criteria, if you like. So Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander background, a child or family known to child protection, or children from a refugee or asylum seeker background. So if you think that you might fall in that category, but you're not quite sure what that means for you, then certainly have a conversation, and we can support you in the enrolment process also. So we say, what year do you want your child to start school? And we say this very deliberately because now the government is rolling out more hours of 3-year-old kindergarten. Families are questioning, well, when do I access that? And what does that look like for my child? And what does that look like in the lead up to school? So there's a link here that I'm going to press, and it's called Give Your Child the Best Start. Now, this particular page has lots of really great, valuable information on there. So if you can access this link, we certainly encourage you to. It has lots of information about free kinder, what is kinder, what does that look like, transitioning to school as well. But we're just going to go down here. And you can see there's a date, a month, and a year. So I'm going to type in a child's date of birth, so that may be eligible for kindergarten. So I'm going to type in a child that might have been born on the 4th of February 2020 and press calculate. And that will actually tell you when your child can start 3-year-old kindergarten and 4-year-old kindergarten. So really important to note here that if your child is on the younger side of being 3, yes, they can start in that particular year. However, quite often we would recommend that they start the following year where they're just that little bit older. Obviously, that's a discussion that you would have as a family, and you know your child much better than what we do. But we always encourage families to look at the whole picture. So Julie will talk a little bit more about that later, but it was really just to start to get you thinking that just because your child may be eligible, does that necessarily mean that they're ready? And do you want your child to go to school and start prep when they are 4 years of age? Or would you prefer them to start prep when they are 5, turning 6 years of age? So I'm just going to go ahead and close that now, but it's a really great resource. So 3-year-old funded kindergarten. In 2024, our 3-year-old kindergartens are funded for a minimum of 7.5 hours or 15 hours a week for eligible children. Children can only attend one funded 3-year-old kindergarten program. So this can be a kindergarten or an approved childcare setting, but not both. So what that means is that children can come to us for 3-year-old kinder. They can also go to childcare as well on the days that they don't come to us. However, we would claim the funding for your child and not the childcare. So you would need to have that discussion with your childcare provider if that's what you choose to do. So your provider is aware that they will not be claiming funding for your child. And that way, we're not double dipping for children. We can make sure that individual children get the support that they need. Again, if you're not sure what that looks like, we can certainly have a conversation about that because it can be a little bit confusing to start with. But just to reiterate again, is that children can go to a long daycare setting on childcare on the days that they don't go to kinder in the Macedon Ranges, but you would need to be very clear with your childcare provider that they are going to another kindergarten, so they know not to claim funding. Also, a really important fact that there is no option for a second year of funded 3-year-old kindergarten. So quite often families will say to us that their child's on the younger side, but that's okay because they can just have another year. And in an ideal world, that would be great for some children. However, children are not actually eligible for that. So when you enroll your children into 3-year-old kindergarten, you need to be really confident that you think that your child is ready for that because they cannot repeat the year. We will discuss this a little bit more further, but in the next year in the 4-year-old program, there is a possibility for children to do 4 years in the 4-year-old kindergarten. However, there's a really strict criteria to meet for children to, to advocate to do a second year of kindergarten. So it can't just be that they are a little bit younger and we think that they would benefit for a second year. Children have to meet really clear developmental domains in order to advocate for a second year. So really important to stop and think about, do you think that your child's ready for 3-year-old kinder? Because you can only access it one time. And obviously families need to make a decision if your child is ready for kindergarten before they start. So 4-year-old kindergarten across the Shire, it's funded for 15 hours per week, and those are usually made up of 2 longer days, so 2 7.5-hour days to make the 15 hours. And again, this can be in a kindergarten or approved childcare setting, but not both. So again, your child can go to childcare on the days that they don't come to kindergarten with us, but you would have to have that conversation with your child's childcare so they know not to claim the funding. And council kindergartens only take funded children. So a second year of 4-year-old kindergarten cannot be assumed. So like I said, some families think, my child's on the younger side and that's okay, they can have another year. But unfortunately, that's not the case. So we try and have those conversations with families really early on, especially if they're deciding that kindergarten is the right decision for their family and for their child. So as I said, there's a very strict criteria to be met before a second year can be approved. And there's no option to pay privately. So some families think, well, if the teachers don't support a second year, that's okay, I'll just pay and get that second year in. But like I said, that's not an option either. All right, so the enrolment process. So if you haven't already registered for kindergarten in 2024, you can register online through this link. Like I said, after our presentation this evening, this will go up on our website, Macedon Ranges Shire Council, so you can follow the link on there. Alternatively, you can just jump on the website and search for kindergarten enrolments, and that will prompt you to enroll that way. Oh, sorry, to register that way, I should say. So after the 30th of June, kindergarten timetables for 2024 will be reviewed. So obviously we have a timetable this year, however, that might continue to work. In some cases it may not. So we will go through the process of reviewing that. And then around September and October, offers will be sent by email. and it will include an option to put your preference for days as well. So, for example, if you're thinking that you might like to send your child to, say, Manigum Kindergarten in Gisborne, it'll give you a couple of different options as to which days would suit you and your family, and then you would have a preference to choose those options. And you would also have a preference to choose your kindergartens as well. So you might think, we live in Gisborne, so our ideal would be maybe to go to Manigum Kindergarten, but we can also list Swinburne Kindergarten as well. And once group allocations have been finalised, you'll receive an enrolment form which must be completed to secure your child's place. And then toward the end of the year, you'll receive information for your child to attend a welcome session at their kindergarten. It's really important to stress as well, to enrol in kindergarten, all children must be fully immunised for their age. And this is unless they're on a recognised vaccine catch-up schedule or has a medical condition preventing them from being fully vaccinated. So if you're not sure about this, or if you're not sure if your child's been fully vaccinated, or maybe they have not, maybe you've got some questions, a good place to start is talking to your GP, and they can put you in the right direction. And you will need to provide copies of any updated immunisations throughout the year as well. All right, I'm now going to hand it over to Julie, and Julie is going to talk to you a bit more about readiness for kindergarten and what does that look like. Thank you, Julie.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I also wanted to just talk a little bit about my role, because it's a relatively new role at council. So my background's in speech pathology, and I've worked primarily in the early intervention space with preschool age children and families. And so my role is really to provide that extra layer of support to educators and to help them support children with additional needs in their kinder. And I guess this could look like meeting with families before a child starts kinder, maybe getting funding or supports in place, and really helping with a smooth transition into kinder. And then later on, there's the option of having that support into the school setting as well. So I work across all of the 8 council kindergartens in the Macedon Ranges. So you may see me out and about. So I guess I just wanted to talk a little bit more around the readiness for kinder, and I guess as Kate had stressed, just because your child's old enough to attend 3-year-old kinder and 4-year-old kinder, it doesn't necessarily mean that your child's ready for kinder. And as we've spoken about, think about, again, what age you'd like your child to start school and work backwards from there. And I wanted to start by saying, I guess, looking at some of these factors about readiness, that all children are different and children develop at different rates. So there's lots of factors involved. Remember that you know your child the best, and this is really just very general information about the sort of skills that will help your child manage the demands of a kinder program and help you make an informed choice. Okay, so, and again, if you have any concerns or if you wanted to talk more about the kinder program, you can speak to, one of the regional team leaders like Kate, a bit more about that, or the educator involved with your child. So next slide, please. Sorry, Kate, because I have, you're in control. So the emotional factors, I guess I've really been seeing the impacts of COVID coming on the children that are coming through kinder this year. There's been a lot more separation anxiety from parents and from children. And so I guess it's thinking about, how well does your child, with support, how well are they able to say goodbye to you and separate without a great deal of distress? Something to think about. A 7, a 7.5-hour day is really long. I think a lot of the educators have noted that from going from a 5 to a 7.5 hour day, they've noticed the kids get really tired. And I guess children will have access to quiet spaces, but there's not mattresses, there's no set nap times. So sometimes families may choose to gradually build up to a long day. And thinking about, will they be able to interact positively with a range of educators and peers? And it could be up to a room of 30 children. So it's, it's quite a lot to deal with. If they're confronted with challenges, can they ask for help? And can they, how well can they manage emotions or seek reassurance from caregivers? Okay. So the next one's independent skills. So toileting, children can attend kinder if they're in nappies, but it's great if they are toilet trained or at least starting to toilet train. And I guess, considering starting over the summer holidays when it's warm and kids can be in undies or, take the nappy off, you can start training around 2 years of age. And if they don't like wearing nappies, or if they can stay dry for up to 2 hours, or if they're starting to tell you that they've done a wee or a poo, they're really good signs that they might be ready to start training. And I guess most 3-year-olds, would be expecting to, that they could usually wash and dry their hands with some prompting or reminders if needed. Things like dressing and undressing, we'd usually expect that they can, assist with the dressing, putting on shoes. They might put them on the wrong feet. They might attempt to put on socks, attempt to zip up jackets once we've started them off. And so some of those kinder, what it might look like at kinder is, taking their shoes on and off, putting coats on and off, hats on and off, smocks on and off, and dress ups on and off. So they're things to, think about and practice. And things like managing their lunchbox and drink bottles, can they feed themselves? Can they open their lunchbox? Can they, unwrap or unscrew the containers and manage the drink bottles? Can they start to help pack up their bags and even the toys in the room? There's some of the things to think about. So with the communication, speech is mostly understood by others, I guess. It's such a big range with this age group, but, you'd expect that they can verbally, use sentences, 3 to 5 words, also use gestures and pointing, following longer instructions. So it might be put your hat in your bag and sit on the mat. Communicating for a range of reasons. So asking for help, can they comment on something? That's a big truck, or look, a plane. Can they ask and answer questions? And then can they describe, basic feelings, how they're feeling, how other people are feeling, and can they understand, some of those WH questions. So, who is it? What are we doing? Where's, what's happening in the book, I guess. So in the kinder setting, it looks like, the following instructions, joining in songs, answering questions about books at story time, might be asking a teacher for help, talking to other peers, talking about what they like or don't like, how they want the play to go, and talking to other family members about their day at kinder. So play, I guess we'd expect some of the peers to be playing alongside their peers. So, and interacting, across a variety of play. So it might be pretend play, might be starting, outdoor play, sharing and turn takings beginning. And are they able to, are they beginning to self-regulate their emotions, their behaviour and responses to other people? And I guess it's such a big part of being at kinder, is learning how to play and interact with others. And I guess if you're not sure, your child's ready, I think a really good place to go is maternal child health nurse, with their checks at 2 years and 3.5 years. You know, fill in those sections in the green book, giving examples of what they're doing, write any questions and concerns. You know, there's just such a wealth of information. So it's really, you know, I can't stress enough how important it is to do those checks. You know, you're the experts on your child, but as the saying goes, sometimes you don't know what you don't know. And, you know, for me, I had a 3.5 check with my daughter, and they checked her vision, and we realised, because they check one eye separately at a time, we realised that she wasn't seeing out of one of her eyes, and she was long-sighted and she needed glasses, and, you know, I had no idea. So you know, and it's made such a difference to be able to, you know, work that out at 3.5 versus, you know, going to school and finding that out. Other people, I guess, you know, is if your child's going to childcare, talk to the educators there, see how they're going, what do they think about, you know, their readiness. You know, they've got really good ideas too, and, you know, they've seen them interact within a group situation as well. I guess if you do have concerns, I'd say don't wait and see. I think there's such big waiting lists, you might just be waiting. So, you know, Sunbury Cobor offer drop-in sessions. I think at the moment they're hoping to start those next term, because they're moving to the Kyneton, being based at the Kyneton office, and they also do them out of Sunbury as well. And they can also help with organising hearing or audiology assessments, and that's really a good step to rule out if there's any speech concerns. And also your local GP is another good person to talk to. Yeah. So children with additional needs or diverse needs, you know, please let the kinder know if your child has an NDIS plan, or if there's a confirmed diagnosis, or if they're awaiting assessment or receiving any sort of allied health support. Really, you know, it really helps with planning and making sure everything's in place, you know, if funding's needed for an extra person in the room to support. And we can get all that done before they start, and that makes a really nice smooth transition, makes it easier for the children and for everyone, I guess, starting. And often, you know, the feedback is that families feel a lot more confident too if their child's supported to start. So, you know, yeah, please let us know. So things, I guess, general things to help at home, you know, I guess it's that supporting language and early literacy skills is really being present with your child. You know, it's really talking with your child about what you're doing, what they're doing, lots of commentating. You know, it's you know, what are they doing? What are they playing? What are they thinking about? So it may mean reducing use of screen time, and I know that's a really hard thing to do. The Raising Children's Network is really useful, and they've got a nice article about preschooler screen time and getting that balance. And I found that quite a nice one. So talking about having shorter sessions, keeping it out of the bedroom at night, things like that. Reading books together. You know, I can't stress enough about reading books with your child. You know, asking curious questions, not just testing them, not just saying, oh, what's that and how many is that and what colour is that, but, you know, making those connections about, oh, you know, remember when, oh, they're going to the beach. Remember when we went to the beach? You know, have you ever been excited about going to a birthday party? You know, so it's making those connections about what you're reading and what your child has experienced. That really helps. You don't have to read the book word for word. You know, you can look at the pictures. You can try some interactive books, so the lift the flap books. If you know, some of your children may not be as interested in books. books with rhyme and repetition are really great for the children to join in. So going on a bear hunt, and then you can act that out as well. So there's lots of lovely rhyming books. So Oi Frog, or What the Ladybird Heard, and lots of pointing out print throughout the day. So you're coming up to a stop sign, stop. Kids learn to read that sign. The more that you just focus on it and look at it. Or if you're out shopping and you see milk on the milk carton, and you're focusing on the sound, so you can sort of work on a lot of those things incidentally. And you can do things like let them help you write a shopping list, things like that. So some of the social skills, encouraging them to talk with other children and play with other children, having lots of opportunities to access play groups and supported play groups. There's parent, child, mother, goose sessions, which is a lovely, singing and storytelling group that you can access. I think in Gisborne as well as in Kyneton. There's rhyme times at the library, or just even going to the park and hanging out with friends there. So some of the self-help, we talked a little bit about that, but encouraging children to do things for themselves. I know it's really, sometimes we're rushing and it's really hard to let them have the time to practice the dressing. So, or feeding themselves or doing those things for themselves. I guess it's just picking a time in the day when you've got more time to be able to do that, and waiting and holding back and letting them show you what they can do. Letting them join in with everyday activities. So, watering plants, passing you the pegs for the washing, those sort of things. I think it's really important with the separation anxiety is just to practice leaving your child with a trusted adult, and then celebrate that coming back. We did it. I came back, and you were really brave, and you've stayed there, and we've had a great time. So it's just starting to get used to that I'm going to leave, but I'm going to come back in 10 minutes, or I'm going to come back after we've done this activity, and then celebrate that. And I think that just getting the child to know that can happen and that can be successful is really important. And also the pretend play. So just joining in play, it's so strongly linked with language and with self-regulation and problem solving. So, and that's why we have a play-based kinder program. So really it's about having fun and getting down and joining in the play, following their lead, what they're interested in, and acting out some of the everyday tasks that you see, like, pretending to make dinner and feeding a baby or a teddy or a pet, so having practice at those everyday activities. All right.
Thank you, Julie. I'm just going to stop sharing now, and I'm going to turn the recording off, so just bear with me.